I'm Charlotte Pike. I'm an award-winning food writer and trained chef. I'm a passionate foodie, and so I'm here today to show you one of my favourite recipes from my new cookbook, Fermented. I'm actually going to make a sourdough chocolate cake for you today, and the difference is that this cake contains some sourdough starter. It adds a wonderful depth of flavour and it makes the cake even more special. It's a fantastic cake to make for any occasion. People love it for birthdays, any kind of celebration, or even just because. So this cake is actually very simple to make. You start by making a basic sponge cake mixture and then add in the sourdough starter at the end. So first of all, I need some caster sugar and some butter. Now I always use proper butter in my cakes because I think it's better for you than using a spread. So as with most cake recipes, I need to start by creaming together the butter and the sugar. And it's always a good idea to cream this together well for a couple of minutes until the mixture becomes paler in colour and light and fluffy. Now I'm going to add the eggs. We need 4 eggs for this recipe, and a good tip for any cake making recipe is to beat your eggs together well before you add them to the cake mixture. This ensures you don't end up with clumps of egg yolk or egg white in the mixture. So I'm going to give them another quick beat again and add them to the mixture. So now the eggs are beaten into the sugar and butter, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract and a little salt. Now the vanilla extract is going to add just an extra depth of flavour to the cake. And now I'm going to add just a pinch of sea salt. Again, salt and chocolate work wonderfully well together, but make sure you use a really good sea salt. So 2 teaspoons of baking powder, they're going to give the cake an extra bit of rise along with the sourdough starter. Some plain flour. There's no need to use self-raising in this recipe. And the cocoa powder. I'm going to gently mix the flour into the wet ingredients very quickly before adding the final ingredients to this cake. So next I'm going to add the sourdough starter to the cake. Now sourdough starter is made from equal quantities of flour and water, and it's the basis to make a sourdough bread. It is actually a natural raising agent in its own right, because the flour and water, when mixed together, will create gas bubbles in bread or cakes to give a wonderful rise and a sort of sour acidic tang to the cake or bread. So this I've made myself, and actually I have a chapter of sourdough recipes in my book Fermented. But if you don't have any to hand, I suggest possibly asking someone you know who makes sourdough bread. People are generally very generous with sharing their starters with friends. Or try and find a lovely artisan baker, because if you ask them nicely, most likely they'll give you some to take home. So I need to give this a stir because it separates quite quickly, and I'm going to pour this liquid starter or levain into the cake mixture. Now levain is just another term for sourdough starter really. There we are. I'm going to follow that with some boiling water and the same quantity of milk. I always use whole milk in baking. I think it actually produces a much better result. That little bit of extra fat content in the milk really makes your cakes much more tender. There we go. Now that'll look like you've got quite a lot of liquid in the cake batter, but don't worry, it will work perfectly. All you need to do now is make sure that you mix very, very gently to ensure it's combined, otherwise it'll just splash a little bit. So now you can notice that the cake mixture is nice and smooth and uniform, and all the wet ingredients have been really nicely incorporated into the mixture. So I just need to give it a quick scrape. You can do this halfway through if you want, just to make sure that everything is combined evenly. And now we're ready to transfer the mixture to the baking tins. Now I'm going to transfer the mixture to my prepared tins. So I just need to spoon it in and make sure that it's levelled off nicely. You can just use the back of a spoon to tease the mixture around the pan, and make sure that it goes right up to the edges, otherwise you'll end up with a dome-shaped cake if there's too much mixture in the centre of the cake. This does make quite a large cake, so it's a really good one to make when you're feeding quite a number of people. Okay, so that's nice and level now. So the cakes are ready to go in the oven. Now I've preheated the oven to 180 degrees Celsius or 160 fan, and I'm going to pop them in now. So the cakes have been baked for around half an hour in the preheated oven. I've tested to see if they're cooked by inserting a skewer into the centre of the cake. Once that comes out clean, I know that the cakes are cooked. So now my cakes are completely cold to the touch. I've got some beautiful chocolate buttercream I've made here, which is made from 120 grams of icing sugar, 100 grams of cocoa powder and 80 grams of butter, all mixed together. I've mixed this in the mixer until it's really soft and smooth. And it's important that your icing is soft before you start to put it on the cake. Otherwise it'll drag through the cake, causing crumbs to come away. So I'm just going to ice this cake very simply, and I'm going to place half the buttercream in the middle of the cake, and then I'll sandwich it together and ice the top. So I'm spreading that as evenly as possible across the cake. I'll place the top layer on top now. There we go. I'm just putting the remainder of the icing on the top now and spreading that evenly across the cake. If you like, you can double up the icing mixture and then ice the sides as well, but that's a bit more tricky. So this icing is quite pale in colour because it's been beaten quite vigorously in the mixer to make it soft, smooth and light. And you can decorate this cake with anything you like, such as flake chocolate, sweets even for a children's party, fresh flowers, even some fruit, maybe some raspberries or some strawberries in the summer. There we go. It's a super simple and absolutely delicious chocolate sourdough cake.